If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
What a great song. Bruce Springsteen here on the Basketball Show on this Saturday morning. Thanks so much for being with us. And I'm very happy to be speaking with the next gentleman, Allan Horton, radio play-by-play voice of the Minnesota Timberwolves, joining me. Hi, Allan. How are you?
Paul, I'm great. Great to catch up with you.
Great to catch up with you as well. Are you getting a little bit of a break over the All-Star weekend?
So far, so good. Yeah, we played Thursday night, and so it's only been one day into the second day, but it's a nice little break because that schedule, the NBA Cup this year really backed things up. I mean, you really had to carve out some time for that Cup, even more so than the prior year, and it really backed up the schedule behind that. You play 2 games in 10 days, and then all of a sudden you're playing basically every other day for the next 3 months. It's been a real grind, and teams have had just crazy schedules over the last couple of months. So I think the All-Star break comes at a really good time, allows everybody, not just broadcasters and staff, but players as well, to get a little bit of a break.
The other night, you mentioned the Thursday night game, Allan. I believe both Oklahoma City and the Timberwolves were coming off. They were on a back-to-back, so it was the last game before they go into the All-Star break. But I watched the whole game, and if the Timberwolves, I guess it's the dream game in terms of effort, isn't it? Like, that was 48 minutes of pure basketball effort. It was so much fun to watch against the team that has made all of the headlines all year long with their spectacular play with the Thunder rather. But the T-Wolves handled them and did it shorthanded.
Yeah, they did, because they were without Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley, Dante DiVincenzo. Those are three starters right there, and one key reserve coming off the bench as Dante replaced Mike Conley earlier this year in the starting lineup. And so it was a lot of the young guys that were just relentless. And what was particularly pleasing was that the prior night on the very same floor, the Wolves really had none of that effort, or not to that extent, against a Bucks team that was basically throwing in the towel in their final game before the All-Star break. No Giannis, no Dame, and yet the Bucks, they just came out on fire, and the Wolves didn't seem to have an answer. So it was a great response. It was a great contrast to the night before. And like I said, when you're getting production from T.J. Shannon and Jalen Clark and Rob Dillingham and Luka Garza, these might not be household names, but, they got the job done. And even though Anthony Edwards, again, did not shoot the ball well, has been dealing with a hip injury, I thought he played some really good connective basketball. Even when you're not shooting, you can still be a positive on the floor. And so that was a big win. I mean, OKC is number one in the league for a reason. They have been unbelievable. The system they've got in place there in OKC is second to none, and they've got the talent to fill that system that they run. And that's a big win, especially for the Timberwolves, who had been 0-7 against the top four teams in the NBA. There are four teams that are top 10 in offense, top 10 in defense, the elite of the elite: Boston, Cleveland, OKC, and Memphis. And the Wolves hadn't beaten those teams at all, 0-7 against those four until winning on Thursday night.
I'd like to talk about Naz Reid, before we jump into some of the other trade-related items in the NBA, but also about the big trade for the Timberwolves. But let's talk about Naz Reid. He was Sixth Man of the Year last year. I don't know how you have. Tell me about how you have felt he's played this year with this reconfigured lineup.
I think he's now into the starting lineup with Julius Randle out injured, and that's always kind of been the question. I mean, the reason Naz has got such an incredible following in the Twin Cities and really across the country is that, he was an undrafted free agent out of LSU. So the Wolves kind of spotted him. They signed him initially to a two-way. I think he played one summer league game, and they're like, we got to lock this guy up. They'd signed him to a 4-year deal. And he's worked his way up from playing in the G League to getting some minutes in the rotation to being a backup big, and now to getting that Sixth Man of the Year last year, and now kind of taking that next step where he has shown that in the starting lineup, it's only been a half a dozen games, but he's legit. He can play that spot. He can go up against number ones. He can go up against other starting power forwards and still produce like he did the other night when he gets 27. It was his first 25-10-5 game, 25 or more points, 10 or more rebounds, 5 or more assists. We've seen him hone his game, hone his body, hone his workout routine into a starter in this league. And he's going to be a free agent after this season, and the Wolves are trying to do everything they can to lock him up. And I know Naz would love to stay in Minnesota. So it seems like a perfect marriage if they can make it work.
He's a perfect Minnesota guy, isn't he? Like he like in terms of being able to relate. Minnesota sports fans are quite unique, I believe anyway, and quite specific. And when you have a player like Naz who's, had to work hard and had to work his way up through the system, those are the kind of athletes that Minnesotans really gravitate towards.
Yeah, and that was evident last year when we had a Naz Reid beach towel giveaway. It's a nice blue towel, and it says Naz Reid right across the front of it. That thing was probably the greatest giveaway they've ever had in their 36-year franchise history. The people were starting to take pictures with that towel across the globe. So anytime they go on vacation, they take a photo with their Naz Reid towel, and they'll post it to social media. It's been a huge, huge hit, and one of the pizza places here in downtown Minneapolis just put a sign out a couple of years ago that said, "Honk if you love Naz Reid," and then that's become famous, synonymous. He took his picture next to it. So he really has become a fan favorite. And you're right. When you I think this is true in almost all sports and really across the country. If maybe some places more than other, but if fans see you work hard and have that blue collar mentality, it's easy to root for guys like that. Now you have to have the success that comes along with it. You better have the improvement and get better as the expectations rise for you. But Naz has met all that, and like I said, he's now the most tenured Timberwolves player there is. He's in his 6th year. Ant's only in his 5th. So Naz has been here longer than anybody, and just been an absolute fan favorite.
Plus, he's a great guy, and I mean that just adds to it. So I'm talking with Allan Horton, radio play-by-play voice of the Minnesota Timberwolves here on the Basketball Show. Great game against Oklahoma City in what has been, I think, the proper descriptor of the season so far would be, Allan, uneven. Thus far, Wolves made the big news in the preseason of trading away Karl Anthony Towns for Julius Randle, DiVincenzo. It's not been smooth sailing, has it? It's been a rough and rocky road, but it seems like as the Wolves continue to get, if they can continue to get healthier, that they're starting to figure some things out.
Yeah, it's been a real roller coaster. I mean, it's just to start off the year, they won 6 of 9, but then they followed that up by losing 7 out of 9. Then they won 6 out of 7. Then they lose 7 out of 10. And so it's been this kind of roller coaster all season. And a better way to look at it is they started the year 17-17, and they've kind of started to figure things out. Even with the injuries starting to mount, they've gone 14-8 over the last 5-6 weeks now. And they're playing their most balanced basketball this season. So they've been top 10 offense. They've been top 10 defense over this last 5 weeks. And they're starting to, they still have some struggles in close games, which is problematic, considering they play more close games than any team in the league heading into the All-Star break. And Ant's had his issues down the stretch, just finding that clutch shot. But this happened 2 years ago, too, when the Wolves acquired Rudy Gobert. It took a while to figure it out when you add a big piece like that. And they did the same thing with Julius and Dante. It's just taken a little time. 2 years ago, they hit the ground running in about January and were able to pick things up. And that's kind of where they picked things up this year. On January 6th is when this kind of run has started.
Let's talk about Anthony Edwards. It's hard to believe he's in his 5th year in the league. He continues to evolve. Certainly, he's already one of the poster players in the league because of his spectacular athleticism. But his development as a three-point shooter, as well as a creator on offense, has been really, really fun to watch. But in a season like this, where it's so up and down, it does tend to get exaggerated sometimes when he has some nights where he seems to really be consuming the ball a lot.
Yeah, I mean, he's really been on a tear. His 53-point game at Detroit came right before this run started. That came on like January 4th. But that kind of triggered this run for Ant, where he's the way I describe it is he's putting up playoff-type numbers now in the regular season. Last year we saw him, in the postseason average 28 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, shoot it close to 50%. On high volume, obviously, and shoot it well from three. And now he's kind of done that here over the last 6 weeks, where he's averaging, 32 points a game, and shot. He's always tried to hone that 3-point shot, and this year he's got it to a point where there's no reason he shouldn't be taking 10, 11, 12 threes. The other night he took 17 three balls a game because he's hitting it at a 42% clip. When you have that kind of efficiency. It helps him. It helps the team if you now have the volume to go along with that efficiency. So that's why he leads the NBA in three-pointers made. That's why he's the number one pull-up shooter in the NBA. He's been in a battle basically with Zach LaVine and Jason Tatum for that honor this year. And it's the pull-up three is, I tell you what, he's almost gotten better at that than the catch and shoot, which Paul, is just when you get a catch and shoot, that's your feet are set. You're catching the ball, you just shoot it. But to have a pull-up three, and a lot of these pull-up threes are step back, side steps in between all these things to shake a defender, you're mixing more things into the equation. And for him to hit those at the rate he is doing, I mean, he's over 40% on his step-back threes. That's
incredible.
That's incredible. Is a level that maybe even James Harden hasn't even got to in his heyday when he was doing all his step-back threes. So it's been impressive to see. Sometimes the offense can get out of whack. I think to your point where he had 3 straight 40-point games, first time in franchise history. Someone's ever done that for the Timberwolves. But there were a couple of games where he got that, and it looked like it was coming at expense of the rest of the offense, although the rest of the offense wasn't really contributing. So it's a bit of a chicken or the egg type of theory,
right?
Which one causes the other. But I think he's really, he's now at the level of these guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jason Tatum. I think he sees them. He sees that those guys see what he sees every night, which are double teams and triple teams and different defenses to try to force him off his game. And the goal for him is now, how do you continue to be effective when you're going to see all these different looks? How can you set up your teammates and finding that balance really between scoring and being a facilitator? Because he is averaging 5 assists per game and probably could average more, and just finding what the team needs on a given night.
I'm talking with Allan Horton, the voice of the Minnesota Timberwolves, here on the Basketball Show. Allan, let's talk about the trade. Let's talk about Randall and DiVincenzo coming in for Karl Anthony Towns. Now, you never know what's going to motivate a player, and Towns has been enigmatic. I think that's a fair descriptor of with his time in Minnesota. Sometimes he looked like he was extremely motivated. Other times he just flat out wasn't. But now in New York, I think today I was reading NBA.com, and they had him 5th in the MVP consideration. Like, he's having a magnificent season. Now, on one hand, that stings, but talk about Randall and DiVincenzo and their ability to fit into the Timberwolves now that they're starting to figure things out.
Yeah, I think Karl's had an incredible season, and his game at Minnesota in his comeback, I think it was around Christmas, his first game back at Target Center wearing a different uniform. I thought that was his best game that I've ever seen him play, and I've seen them all. I guess during the pandemic we called some games off the monitor, so I wasn't in person, but I've seen every one of his games, and that was by far, I thought, the best, just because of the way he approached the game. So many times the pressure in a certain game is large for him and the team, and sometimes he'll pick up offensive fouls, try to do too much. He let the game come to him, and it just seems like he's in a much better place there in New York under Tom Thibodeau, his former coach.
Right.
Things didn't end well with the Tom Thibodeau era here in Minnesota, but it seems to be a pleasant reconnection in New York, and he's getting plenty of playing time. He's getting a chance to go back to the center's position, which he adjusted to moving to the power forward next to Rudy for 2 years. But this deal the wheels for this deal were put in motion when the Wolves acquired Rudy Gobert. Rudy's on a max contract. Ant was still on his rookie deal. Cat had a max contract. And so you knew that Ant's max was going to kick in a couple of years. It did, and now you basically don't have enough money if you're paying 3 max players in this day and age with the salary cap what it is and first apron, second apron. Yeah, you can pay those taxes, but it becomes prohibitively more difficult to run your team the way they want to run it and to create depth. You can have 3 top guys, and guess what? You're going to have all minimum players the rest of the way. So, that unfortunately, Rudy was not going to have the trade value that you paid to get him. You're going to build around, and that left Karl Anthony Towns as the one that was going to get traded. And they finally got a package that they thought maybe sort of the combination of Randall and DiVincenzo could, and based on the statistics from certainly last year, you were getting more back than you're giving out. And it took a little while for that to happen. Julius Randle has a great connection with Chris Finch. They were together in New Orleans for 1 year. That's when Julius had his kind of breakout season and got him a big deal with the Knicks years ago. And so they got a great relationship. And like I said, it's just taken time for it to come together. And it was just coming together when Julius goes down in Utah with a groin injury. But hopefully he's back shortly after the All-Star break, because the Wolves feel like they got really good return for Karl. It's going to give them some long-term, not total flexibility, but more flexibility. Julius still has a player option that he can pick up for next year. Dante's on a really good contract. And what that did was that made the Wolves, instead of having a 7-man rotation that they felt comfortable about going to the postseason, it jumped to 8, which makes a difference as well. So they did the best they could with that trade. They liked it when they got Dante DiVincenzo in it. They got a first-round pick out of it. They pulled the trigger on it, and it's I think it's starting to pay dividends here. I mean, the ultimate we'll look back on this in a year or two and have a better idea of kind of how that trade went, and we can assign who won and who lost. But I think the Wolves are pleased, and I know the Knicks are pleased where they're at as well.
Allan, the major criticism, if you can call it that, or the major critique, let's use the term critique, of the Timberwolves and where a potential gap may be in the ability of the Wolves to make a deep run into the playoffs again this year is the point guard position. Mike Conley's in the latter stages of his career. DiVincenzo has been filling in. It's kind of been a point guard by committee approach that Coach Finch has had to take. What's your opinion of the point guard situation with the T-Wolves?
Yeah, it has been up and down this season overall as a team. I think in part to Mike Conley is that he has been so solid and so good for the Wolves since he got here from Utah, like 2 trade deadlines ago. The record reflects it. When he is a positive and a plus minus, the Wolves are nearly unbeatable. He's been that important, and the Wolves have really missed him these last handful of games. I mean, he's tried to play through. Get this, Paul. He tried to play through a dislocated and sprained thumb on his right hand, and then 3 games later, he dislocated and sprained his index finger, which he now can't even straighten out because it's so jammed up in his knuckle. And they tried to pop it back into place, and then they had to re-pop it out and put it back in so they could get back in the. I mean, he said it was the most painful thing he's been through, and so he's tried to battle through that. But the Wolves desperately need him back because when they're on the floor, they just need the steadying hand at the points. Not that he averages 15, 20 points a game. Not that he gets 10 or 15 assists per game, but Mike just knows how to play the game, knows how to distribute, knows how to organize and set up the offense. And over the last couple of games, the Wolves have missed that particularly, and you see it when Joe Ingles comes into the game. Joe Ingles is on the tail end of his career, but when he comes in, he brings a calmness to the offense, just like Mike did, in knowing how to distribute the ball, knowing how to run the offense, all the little things that Mike does. Joe does that as well, and obviously he's got the older legs, well, just like Mike. Those guys are both on kind of the tail end of their careers, but they just know how to play the game, and they make such a difference when they're on the floor. And so, yeah, Rob Dillingham is kind of the point guard of the future, but this is his first year. It's been up and down. He's battled through a couple of ankle injuries early in the year that set him back. Only played about 3 games in the span of, I think, 25 games. So he wasn't getting the playing time coming back from the injury. And he's more of a score-first point guard. He's kind of one of these I kind of picture him as like a sixth man type, Lou Williams type scorer, or, maybe not the same attributes as Jordan Clarkson, but that kind of scoring potential. He's so quick and he can get a shot off, but he's not pass first. He is score first, pass second. Which is there's nothing wrong with that. You just have to work that into the team system. But the Wolves, I think they do miss a sure handler. Ant has the ball in his hands a lot, and he's going to down the stretch of games in the postseason. And you have Nickeil Alexander-Walker who can who can man the point, but not a true point guard. Dante can do the same, but again, to your point, not a true point guard.
You know, it's interesting to see teams go through this kind of metamorphosis of trying to find a way, because that point guard position that you so accurately describe, Allan, it's not so much the numbers as it is the steadying influence. I think if you had hockey assists in basketball, Connolly would be among the league leaders because of the way he distributes. It's not the spectacular pass, it's a great pass. It's the good pass that leads to a great pass or the great shot. And that kind of calming influence is invaluable for anybody who's played the game. Now, I'd be remiss, and I'm sorry to keep you on a little bit longer, and Ryan, my producer, has been signaling me we got to go to break, but I can't pass up this opportunity with you, Allan. The NBA has been going through quite the flurry of controversy and activity over the last couple of weeks. If let's just talk about the big the elephant in the room, Luka going to LA. What was Dallas thinking? How come it came about is that way? What are your, let's go to 30,000 feet. I use that term far too often, but let's go up high level and get Allan Horton's opinion on what took place between Los Angeles and Dallas.
Well, it's not a new take. I think a lot of people had the same feelings. They thought, first off, that Shams was hacked, and that this was some sort of joke, and a bad joke at that, because you didn't get enough. Clearly, you're not getting enough in return for Luka Doncic, one of the great young players in the league. And then I thought maybe Luka wanted out. Maybe that was the thing that could trigger it. Maybe you want to get that done quickly. No, turns out that wasn't the case. Turns out Shams wasn't hacked. And then I thought maybe Dallas ownership kind of spearheaded this and said, you know what, we're just out. It didn't sound like that was the case either. This was Nico Harrison, not just basically betting that Luka Doncic is not going to be healthy going in the future. He's going to be more unhealthy than healthy, and wanting to trade right now and get back the best player that kept Dallas with a chance to win. And if you were to rank, and this is all subjective, but if you rank the top players in the league and then started at the top and said who was available, I think the first person you get to is Anthony Davis. And so that was probably the team that, and obviously he knows Rob Pelinka extremely well because they go back to their Kobe days together when Rob Pelinka was the agent for Kobe Bryant and Nico Harrison was an executive at Nike. And, of course, spearheading the whole Kobe, Nikes, and all that kind of stuff. So those guys have long ties together. I did think it was just malpractice on not getting enough in return. You want to get Anthony Davis? Great. Well, you also should have gotten another player plus a pick, some more swaps, anything you can. I also would have opened it up more because maybe you get a better deal from somebody else. It was a little strange that's the way it went down. And your whole reason for making the trade in the first place is you're betting against the health of Luka Doncic while you're acquiring one of the unhealthier players that's ever been in the league in Anthony Davis. And, of course, what does he do in his first game? He gets hurt in a Mavericks uniform. So, I mean, it's just kind of it really troubling. Like, it's not like Luka was at 30 years of age and you're contemplating whether or not he's worth $350 million on 5 years. He's 25. And when he's healthy, here's the other thing. When he's healthy, he's led you to 2 Western Conference Finals. He's been first-team All-NBA 5 times. It's staggering how good he is when he is healthy, and he's already missed the time that he's already missed. So you're banking that he's going to miss, twice as much time going forward? Because anytime he's healthy, guess what? His teams win. So I don't know how I can understand why Mavs fans are so disappointed. The Lakers seem to be this franchise that just, it's I don't even know how to phrase it. Like, it's just uncanny how often they're the recipients of, of getting all these guys, getting Shaq and going back to Wilt and going back to Kareem and getting Pau Gasol and all these guys that end up there to keep one of the marquee franchises in the NBA going. So it certainly worked out for them because they were facing a future of, LeBron's 40, Anthony Davis can't stay healthy, and he's certainly not going to be around in 5 years probably. It's uncanny that now they have a guy, and as we saw with Towns having his best year of his career. I bet you Luka, if he can stay healthy, probably feeds off of what a LeBron does and what this trade did and how hurt he probably is and how motivated he probably is. I think that's something that people don't realize. These guys, any professional athlete is so motivated, and you give them a little bit of fire, a little bit of criticism publicly, that'll fuel somebody for quite a bit of time. And I would imagine Luka. I would bet on Luka being successful more times than not.
I had two real quick thoughts on your really well stated comments. Number one, you can't make karma up like what happened to Anthony Davis, going out in a non-contact injury and then having Gafford go out in the next game. So now you've got a team with 3 posts with no posts. You just can't make that up. That's number one. And then number two, the only way 3 years down the road that Dallas looks like they were prophetic, and I kind of, in an irreverent way, equate this to Masai Ujiri in Toronto signing Kawhi. The only way this looks like, wow, this guy really did know what he was doing, is if Luka doesn't take his body seriously, like doesn't respond the way you just described, that we both know he will, that he doesn't take his body seriously, and he does the Zion Williamson thing where it just is, he's hurt intermittently all the time and can't string full seasons together because he just doesn't take his conditioning seriously, or bad luck happens to him. But that's like that 1% chance that Dallas somehow in the end is going to look like, man, this guy really saw this coming.
Right. No, I completely agree. And I just, Nico Harrison's been on the job for like maybe 3 years, I think, in Dallas, and he's done a really good job of building around Luka. They've pulled the right pieces. They pulled off that trade at the trade deadline last year.
Absolutely.
Gafford, to get P.J. Washington. I mean, the Wolves lost to them in the Western Conference Finals. They were a machine. They had the defense that Nico Harrison talks about wanting to play. They played it. That's how they got to the NBA Finals. And guess what? You ran into a juggernaut in the Boston Celtics that I don't know that anybody was going to beat. So sometimes that happens. You can't control what's coming your way and who you're facing. But they were the second best team in the NBA last year, and that defense that he wants to play with Anthony Davis, like that, you had that. That's what you had. That's how you got to the NBA Finals. So it's he's betting that Luka will be the next Joel Embiid or Zion Williamson for the next 5 years. Now the difference is that when Luka is healthy, like I mentioned, he's better than Joel Embiid and Zion Williamson because he's proven that he can get your team to the postseason and make playoff runs. And that's what the Dallas Mavericks are betting against. It's so funny, though, Paul, too. You, as a franchise, you work your entire franchise's history to acquire the most incredible talent you possibly can, right? Sometimes you luck into it through the draft. Sometimes you find it in free agency. But when you get a player, like you shouldn't to sign somebody to the Supermax, that means you've got a really good player. That's what you work your whole franchise's history for, to have one of these players so you can pay them. That's all good. And to throw one of those away at 25 years of age, I just don't think the future is very bright for Dallas. Yeah, they might survive this season. Maybe AD comes back, has a big year next year. But you're right. In 3 years, I'll take where the Lakers are 10 times out of 10 of where the Mavericks are going to be.
Boy, is that ever the situation? The great thing has been, though, Allan, man, is it got us all talking. It has shaken things up. It's not great for Dallas.
Super Bowl week, too, Paul. During Super Bowl week, I think the NFL was like, you know what, we got to do away with this extra week between the conference finals and the Super Bowl. We're losing out to the NBA trade deadline, which just dominated the conversation, the sports landscape, for about 5 days there. And it's still going because Luka trade was so big. We're all still discussing it. Guess what? We're going to continue to discuss it into the years to come.
Boy, that is so true. Allan, unfortunately, we've got to go. Thanks for staying extra with me, though. This has been so much fun. I look forward to when we can talk again. And best of luck to the Wolves after the All-Star break, and hopefully they can continue to put things together. We all know and can commiserate about the long-suffering fans in Minnesota, and to have the Wolves on the rise like they have been over the last years with a superstar like Ant, it's been really great to see.
Paul, always good to catch up. Appreciate it. And thanks to all the fans that have maybe turned into Timberwolves fans along the way from hearing some of our conversations. So we appreciate it and hope everything's well up in Edmonton.
Allan Horton, voice of the Minnesota Timberwolves on WCCO Radio, joining me today on the basketball show. We're going to take a break right now, and Ryan and I are going to talk a little bit about one-on-one dream matchups when we come back here on Sports 1440.